and I was thinking what I should say, and I remembered, and I decided to say something about Giuseppe Lanci. And suddenly I opened today the site of the festival, this festival, and the first DP that is quoted is Giuseppe Lanci. He shot a film in Israel. At the time I was an actor, and I was very impressed by the way he was lighting, first putting a lot of light, and then
switch it off.
no, trying to covering out, and as Vittorio Storaro said to me, yes, until you see nothing. They were not very much in and covering, and for me it was a metaphor, though he was doing it indoors, it was a metaphor about the first years of shooting films in Israel, and all they were saying, the cinematographers and the directors, that there's too much light. We're making too many films in Israel.
You're lucky you.
I just told.
Yes.
I spoke with two Italian guys here, and they told me that in Italy, if you want to go and study cinema, you have 1, 2, 3 possibilities, no more. 4, you can go to Palermo, to Torino, Dams, Roma. In Israel, we have more than 10 film schools.
Wow.
17.
Yes, but 10, okay. 10. If my son will ask me to go to a film school, I will give him only a list of 10, not the 17. 2 of them are.
But his son is a very good editor, so he doesn't need it anymore.
2 of them are out of Israel, in the occupied territories. Anyway, so it's like in Italy, you would have 100, because we have 7 millions, 70 millions, 10 schools, 100 film schools. You can imagine how many unemployed people we are producing every year. And I said it because you asked me what's the situation about. I've been just in a committee that was deciding to help some documentaries, and we had 126 proposals, and we could give money to 10 films. So 116 went home with a negative answer. The first success of Israeli films in festival were documentary films. At the beginning, they were saying that the success is due to the fact that Israel is producing the conflict. Is producing an interest. So films that are dealing with the conflict and films dealing with the Holocaust are successful in Europe, and that's the main reason. And I remember once that the head of the Amsterdam Film Festival, ITFA, she said, "I hope that I will not be accused of taking every year another Israeli film just because of the subject, that someone will write about the topic." And it's true that at the beginning it was the topic, the stories were very good and very special. But through the years, in the last years, you could see more and more filmmakers that were using documentary as a way of expressing themselves through the personal look at the world, and not only through a political perspective, though documentaries are almost always in a way political. And for instance, even the film that you see today, it's political in the sense that it's in the public sphere, but it's not against or it's not a manifest. And if you compare it to fiction film, it's a field where more female directors by percentage are successful. We have in the Israeli feature films field, until
Until this year.
Until this year. No, 2 years. The last 2 years there was a kind of breakthrough.
And on the way to that.
But most of them are first-time directors, so we don't know. We're suffering from something that also Italy is suffering. A lot of first-time directors,
No second time.
and then no second
No
time or
third
third
time.
time. When you produce a documentary and you want to produce it based on a local public money, not on your own, you usually go to a foundation or to one of these channels, depends who's first,
Yeah.
and you try to get, and it works like 60-40%. A budget of an Israeli documentary, well financed, would be around 120,000, 80,000 euros, I was thinking dollars. Most of Israeli cinema is made of public money. There's no private, the only private money is coming from television. Until now.
In Italy it's the same.
In the last years, some people started it, and now with the success abroad, so you can see also documentaries that are financed with European money.
Is this the case of
No. Arte is coming in. Some German funds are coming in. Strangely enough, there's a Finnish television that is always putting some money into Israel. He likes traveling, this guy. So every time
He
he
likes the
comes,
sound.
and
He
he
likes
buys,
the sound.
he buys one film. Gives like $20,000. So here's a film. Danish money, lately Polish money even is coming in. Most of them, a lot of Israeli films, documentaries, come out in two versions, one for the television, and then they have a festival version. Very few of them are shown in cinemas.
Starting from this, and I want to ask Daniel something related to your personal path.
Yes.
There is, as a cinematographer, there is, let's say there is one of the typical paths is you start with short films, documentaries, and then you get to feature films. Can you tell us about your career, about how you progress, and please keep the voice up.
I'm not sure, I've thought about this a lot, not just today, and I'm not sure there is a typical path. I'm pretty sure my path is not typical. And when I look around me at other DPs in Israel and in general, I think that most of the successful ones and the more interesting ones definitely do not take any typical path as such. I'm not sure. Personally, I did not go to film school. I never studied film. I didn't even finish high school. But and I started working when I was really young. So I worked.
You work in the industry.
Yes. I started working in lighting when I was about 15 years old.
What was your first job?
Lighting.
The very first job was
The very first job was
electrician.
an electrician on a terrible TV show. And,
we want the
and,
details.
you know,
Give us the details.
It's a really bad TV show. Probably nobody remembers it. It was in the mid-90s. It was like these sketches. It was really awful. But I came to work as a half PA, half electric, and then the gaffer said, "Oh, I need him full time with me," so I got to do full-time electrician, and then it kind of moved on from there. I had, the assistant cameraman went to shoot a student film, and he took me to be his gaffer, and then these students got into doing a lot of music videos, so I did that with them. It kind of segued into that, and at a certain point I left high school, and I was working full-time in the industry, mostly in lighting. Then I went to, I deferred my military service by a year. I lived in a commune. I took a complete break from cinema altogether, and then I did something completely different in my military service. And when I left the military service, I went to New York, and I lived there for a few years. And it was something I knew how to do. So I started looking for work in that because it was better than waiting tables or moving furniture or anything else. And there I did pretty much everything. I worked in lighting because I knew that
So
well.
in New York, you start from the lighting. You went back to
I
lighting.
went back mostly back to lighting. Along the way, I did some assistant camera in video mostly, and I worked as a grip, and I worked as a sound man, and I did
Sound man.
yes. So I did a little bit of everything in all kinds of different productions for a few years in New York, and then I came back to Israel. And I have to admit that I always think I had a very good friend when we were 16, 17 years old. We were both kids and we were working as electricians.
Mhm.
We were in the union when we were 17 years old.
Oh, you were already in the union.
Yeah,
In the Israeli. But
the union was much smaller, and we were in the union when we were 17 years old. And he knew he was going to be a cinematographer. He was crazy.
What's his name?
Jonathan Seller.
Okay.
And he just knew he was going to be a cinematographer. He was crazy about it. We'd go out on Friday nights, and he would say, I can't go out, I need to save money, I'm going to study at the AFI and be a big cinematographer. And I was very jealous because he knew exactly what he wants to do. And I had no idea at all. And now he's a big cinematographer. He shot The Last Die Hard. So he's doing pretty well. And he went to Hollywood and he stayed there. He's a great guy. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my first jobs shooting in New York, I was assisting, and the cameraman said, oh, I'm going to go drink my espresso and you finish the visuals. And another day he was sick and he didn't come to work, and I replaced him. So that was... and also
He's a lazy one.
no, he's a great guy.
No,
But, so it kind of, and then this other cameraman got a job filming something in Japan, and he said, "Oh, this guy can take over for me on this TV show," and I did. And in Hebrew we have a saying: "With the food comes the appetite." And the more I shot, the more I enjoyed what I was doing, and it got more interesting for me. I mean, I always liked film very much. I always enjoyed watching films and was very interested in films, and. Somehow I think I was always more drawn to stills photography. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I would probably say that I'm going to be a stills photographer. I love documentary stills photographer and used to...
Maybe you find the time to do that.
To go back to it, yes.
No.
But there's a lot to there's actually a lot to learn from it, and I still go back to it many times when I'm researching or thinking about a film. I'll go and look at stills photography, a lot of documentary photography. I'll go to the Magnum website. I hope you all know Magnum.
Agenzia Magnum.
Okay. It's a wonderful resource. It's like the best photographers in the world.
So you work. It's
Go and look at
important reference.
and I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was saying you start on still photography. You
Yes,
rely on
yes,
that in
it's
your
a very
approach to the work.
reportage, which is not so valued today, but there's a lot of very interesting visual thought there, and also a lot of photographers who never studied anything to do with photography.
Okay, that's a good point.
But I think at the end of the day, it's luck and time and perseverance, just sticking at it, and some combination of all those three. And eventually, I'm fortunate enough, I think, that in a sense, the Israeli film market or industry is pretty small, so a lot of people know each other, and it's small circles, and word travels fast, and eventually you get to know pretty much everybody. And slowly by slowly, I learned. I made a lot of mistakes, and which is a very important part, I think, of learning to be a cinematographer, probably more than anything you do as a student.
I've done the last one 1 month ago.
What did you do?
No, well, I'll tell you in private. I have a reputation. No, there's Zoom.
I always think last year a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, a cinematographer, won an award in Israel, and in her acceptance speech she said that when she was studying to be a cinematographer, her teacher told her that to be a cinematographer you have to ruin at least 10 films, and then you can be a cinematographer. And she thanked all the directors whose films she ruined over the years to get this award. And it's true. And your mistakes are extremely important. One of the I didn't get a direct advice, but I was watching an interview with one of the best cinematographers in Israel recently, Asaf Sudro.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
He's supposed to come.
Yes.
Anyway, Asaf Sudro is a very, very good Israeli cinematographer. And there was an interview with him, and he was saying how he doesn't really want to shoot films, and that's why he doesn't really care about what he's expected to do or what comes out of it, and it gives him this freedom. And just listening to that, I try and keep that in my mind recently in the past year or so, that just not trying to achieve something in a way, not trying, it's not caring, but it's finding this balance of saying, I'm willing to risk
To let it in.
Yeah, I'm willing to risk it, I'm willing to let go, and not care so much about what the expectations and what this thing is supposed to be, and try and listen to and accept what things
Film
are,
comes to you in a way.
and sometimes and that's good advice to let go of it. And it's always a balance, because a lot of what we're doing is trying to tame in reality, right? We're trying to control light, and we're trying to control the situation, we're trying to control the actors and the budget, and we're trying to
The director.
the producer, and we're trying to get everything to play by our rules. But it's also important to, and we're also trying to satisfy other people. And it's important not to find this balance, with yourself, to find this balance with the people you're working with. This is another thing. I was thinking all day, what if there's anything valuable that I could say here, and I wasn't sure there's anything. And one of the things that I thought about a lot was teamwork. How it's very important for me to build a good team on the set. And I put a lot of thought into this, about the synergy of the team. It's less so in documentary, maybe, depends on what kind of production, but when you're going for a larger film, I try to think, well, how are the gaffer and the grip going to work together? Will they communicate well? What kind of energy will be created on the set, and the assistant camera? The different components of this machine create an energy that I believe is eventually transcribed to the image and to the film, and what energy I can create on the set as a cameraman. What can how do I listen to these people? What can I receive from them? How do I balance listening to them, accepting their advice and their knowledge and their experience, and making decisions in the end, and maintaining a certain vision that the director and I had in mind when we set out to do this thing, and trying to maintain this balance, which is not easy or simple, but
it's a big part of.
Or it's a good question where my part as a DP begins, as opposed to the director. Where's this border, and it keeps shifting. Also, it's part of a dialogue, because I don't think we can separate. We can't separate the story and the screenplay and the dialogue and the choreography of the actors from the movement of the camera, from the light, from the sound. This is all part of a dance. It can't be. I can't arrive at a set and say, okay, this is just like an unseen. Say, okay, this is. I mean, I can, but it's the way, at least in fiction, in narrative work. It's difficult for me to make the separation. So it's important for me to begin the dialogue with the director from talking about the screenplay and the dialogue and very initial thoughts about the story, and only then we can establish a foundation on which we can start talking about how the actors are going to move, and what the light is going to be like, and how the camera is going to move within a scene, and slowly build this thing. But how we conduct this dialogue with the director. It really depends. Some directors will tell you you can't talk with the actors at all. You have to, you have to. You deal with your stuff with the camera, and I'll deal with the actors, and it never really works that way. It's impossible. But you have to find the diplomatic way of suggesting that, well, maybe we can do it this way, and trying to find a way to create cooperation, even if it's difficult. Some directors this is easier to do.
It's true that a lot of times the director and the scriptwriter in Israel, unfortunately, are the same person.
So, yes.
Auteur curse, but
That's the curse.
But in other cases, so you like put yourself in between them, no? In this case.
I try not to step on anybody's toes. I try to be very diplomatic about this, and I try to sense very cautiously how I can have this dialogue and to what extent, and how do I do this while respecting the director I'm working with. And I don't think I think actually if there's something that I can do, okay, it's that. I think I've never offended anyone or caused them to feel boxed in. But I do try to have this dialogue to the extent to which the director is willing to accommodate it. And this goes back to the fact that I don't think you can separate what I do from the rest of the film. I don't think you can't separate the image that is recorded from the space the scene takes place in, from the movement of the actors, from the dialogue. The dialogue will many times motivate the movement. The space will motivate the movement and the dialogue. I mean, all these things are inseparable, really. They are one. So very cautiously, I try and maintain this dialogue with the director that enables this thing to coexist and live together.
I'd like to ask about your relationship with technology.
Okay. It's very important. And I spent a couple of hours this morning just playing around with stuff there and asking questions. I think it's very important to know what you can do with your equipment. Not only in your department. I think that the fact that I worked as a sound man and as a grip in his lighting really helps me in every aspect in every kind of production, because I know I have a better dialogue with the sound man and with the grip and the lighting technician, the gaffer. I know what I can ask of them. I know what can be possible and what kind of time, what equipment, and what budget. And with the sound, I try to accommodate and getting good sound, because it's very important. Sometimes we'll fight, and sometimes it's because I know that he can move the boom a little and he'll still get good sound. I think he can use different mic. But I'll also try and accommodate the different sound and different departments. I try to keep updated with technology, with new cameras, new technologies coming out. I think it's very important to be fully aware of the full line of production. If I convince a production to use a new camera, a new technology that just came out, I want to make sure that they can go all the way. I want to make sure that they can, they'll have a clear path, a clear workflow going through post-production, every phase of post-production, because it's very easy to say, oh, this is a brand new camera, it has a really, really cool image, and you can do this and that, but then they arrive at post and they're stuck, they can't. They have problems using the footage or how to use them. And it's also very important to know where and how your images are going to end up. What is the presentation format? Is it going to go to TV? Is it going to be a DCP, Blu-ray, DVD? Will be printed on film? And to accommodate thinking about the final stage of the product, the final product, in your initial decisions, choosing your camera, choosing your lens, choosing how you expose, what kind of lights.
How much control do you think? This is interesting. I think how much control do you think you have on the final? Because you just mentioned. I didn't want to ask her.
I'm a control freak.
Yes, but all these different outcomes that you have nowadays, like as you said, DCP, Blu-ray. How do you feel with control of your image, of the image that you've delivered? How much you think you can control that?
Personally, I try and spend as much time as I can in grading and color correction, and I try and know as much as I can about the options in grading, and I'll talk with the color corrector, the colorist. I'll talk very specifically in numbers about what I want to be done, and I'll for Ganeden, for instance, we did a DCP. It's not what we're projecting today, sadly, but it was one of the first DCPs, not in Israel, but that I was doing, and I went and read the manual about what you can do in the DCP software, what changes, understanding color space and different projection color spaces, and what process is going through. In this case, we did the online on a Symphony, but we ended up in a DCP, so it changes the color space. You need to change the gamma. You need to adapt the image, and I'm. It's really important. Obviously, it's important for me to see the image through all the way of this process, which means all the tests necessary and understanding exactly what can be done with different software and different systems to achieve the best possible end product.
Okay, when you're doing a documentary, shooting a documentary, an Israeli documentary, you know that if it's a successful film, 2,000-3,000 people will see it in cinemas.
Maybe
5,000 people will see it in cinemas, and even if it's not a very successful film, maybe 50,000 will see it on TV. Are you preparing an image for the television and then will work also for the screen, or are you preparing an image for the screen and then it will adapt itself to the small screen?
It might be a snobbish answer, but I think about the screen. But it's also because TV is completely uncontrollable. I mean, a DCP is a closed box. It is what it is. If the projector is calibrated, then it doesn't look the same on every screen. But if the projector is calibrated, it will be the same everywhere, and it's much more. And there's not much control over it when you show it. TVs, every guy at home tweaks his TV, he brings the brightness up and the contrast down, and the hue goes here, and the saturation goes everywhere in place. There's no control over it. I can't, I can come to a good product for TV at the end, but I can't really control how it's viewed at home. Not even close to the extent to which I can control it when it's on a big screen. So, and I think you see flaws a lot more on the big screen. So I think more about the big screen, and obviously at the end we create end products for both, and they both have to look good. But there's.
How do you choose your projects?
How do I choose my product? When I run out of money, I take no.
They choose you.
I have a question.
No, it's not serious. It wasn't.
For me, it was fine.
I wish.
Makes perfect sense.
How do you get?
Can you choose?
No, how do you find?
It took me. I've been. The longer answer, the longer and boring answer, is I've been a freelancer for pretty much all my life. I was on payroll for about 3 months in my whole life, So you develop, this is a personal answer, so you develop an instinct to just say yes. Anything that comes by, because any work, because I've been through periods when I didn't have a lot of work.
We said yes, and we are here.
Exactly, if they call me, if you want me, I'm yours. And
you need to learn how to say no sometimes.
it took me a very long time to learn how to say no. And I'm still learning, and it's sometimes it's very, very difficult. Because if I say no to a job, it doesn't mean necessarily that I get something else instead of it. And also there's another thing that many times you don't know. Sometimes a job sounds really shitty, or I shouldn't say shitty, but a job sounds not interesting, not satisfying in any way, not even financially. But the people you work with end up leading you to other projects that are more interesting, and some projects are worth doing just because they're fun and interesting. Or different projects have different aspects in them to lure me. It's been a difficult learning curve to learn to say no, and I'm still working on it. But more and more I try to be selective in what I do, and it began feeling really good to say no to things that I don't want to do, and understand that I can do it, and that there are what I want to do and what not.
Are you in camera when you shoot?
I'm sorry?
Are you in camera?
Holding the camera? Yes.
It's important to you?
You mean it's opposed to...
To having an operator?
It's
It's,
as opposed to a
Oh,
camera
okay.
operator.
operator.
It's very, very rare in Israel to have an operator.
Okay, that's the way you work.
Most films in Israel are shot with the director of photography, who is also the
Unless it's Steadicam or something.
I remember when in my other career, my other life, I was an actor, and I acted in a film directed by Kostagavras in Israel, and he came with the famous filmmaker, director of photography, Ricardo Aronovich, and I was shocked. I didn't know. I read about it, but I'd never seen it. That he was never, he trusted so much this, and it was an experience to see him.
But in
The
commercial,
camera.
And then
commercial usually they do it.
sorry,
Commercials.
commercials, and also
Cameraman and DP.
Jorge used to have Bich used to be.
In the operator,
הייתי
It's-
על הסרט הזה.
מה?
היה שם עוזר צלם אצל... But it's, I think, in most cases, in Israel, they don't separate this.
Yeah, it's.
So if you get a chance
If
to
I
have
could,
yeah.
I never tried it. I don't think so. I don't think so.
The question was, they could hear, if he would have had the possibilities, what would be better?
What I prefer. I don't think so, honestly.
You like
Probably because I'm too much of a control freak. I wouldn't go. I mean, I go touch the lights. My gaffer hates it. I go mess with his lights and I touch everything. So I probably couldn't take my hands off the camera either. So.
And never happened that the director would hand the camera?
Very, very rare. Twice maybe.
And how did you feel?
When I was. It's not easy. But I've been getting better at letting go with all kinds of things.
So how do you
Stefano.
work with
Sorry, Elad.
Trisha, the wife?
I can't hear you.
The gaffer?
Yeah, what is like, do you tell him exactly where to put the lamp, or do you tell him what figure you want, or do you tell him, I want backlight from this direction, but you can let him choose how to do it? How do you work with him?
It constantly changes. It depends on
The person.
It depends on the person. It depends on how much we've been working together. It depends on how specifically I know what I want.
What is your ideal situation? Like what do you like the best way to work?
I usually, most projects, I come with a very clear idea of exactly what I want. I'll come with diagrams and I'll put in them most of the lights. I know what. I mean, recently I've been working with this great app on the iPad. I'm a salesperson for it now, and I really love it. I chart out the camera movements, the whole scene, the movement of the actors, all the objects.
What's the name of the app?
Shot Designer. You know it?
No.
It's one of the best things that happened to me in the past 2 years.
Maybe I have it.
And it works in the cloud. You can see it on your iPhone. Everybody can see it. It's magnificent. But I put lights into that. If I have enough time.
This one.
Exactly.
Never used it. But it's good to
It's
have.
really good.
It looks right.
And they have good customer service too.
So you mentioned assistants.
So I often come with a very clear idea of what I want. I'll put lights in my diagrams, but then I try to be but I also have a dialogue during scouting with my gaffer, and sometimes he'll come up with great ideas that I wholeheartedly take, and I can't take any credit. He comes up with a brilliant idea, and it's wonderful. And sometimes we both want to try new equipment, and we'll say, oh, we'll bring, we'll get a balloon and we'll use it. It's it's a great new toy. We haven't used it yet. Let's see what happens. And then sometimes, so it really changes. It depends on the project. Often I'll tell him exactly what I want. Sometimes I'll go and move it, and sometimes because of time or because I trust him, because I'm willing to have the discussion, I'll leave it more up to him. But it's rarely very general. I mean, it's relatively specific.
Stefano?
I think that exists two kind of the director. The director who trying with the actors and then put a camera, and the director who plans any takes and then put an actor. Which do you prefer? I think obviously you prefer plans, the take, but for example, Woody Allen shots with
I like to come with my homework done.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to come prepared, and I like knowing what I'm going into. But I've also been working on myself to accommodate changes, and I hope I've been getting better at it. And I think it's important. I mean, many times, I come to set and I say, okay, we had a great plan, but it doesn't work at all. It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for the actor. It doesn't work at all, and it's important to accommodate the changes, and it's very important to feel what's happening, what is really happening in front of you. I don't really like to come to something completely unknown.